Welcome back to the Drunken Zombies Podcast, where we, serve up a daily dose of zombie stories guaranteed to keep you on the edge of your seat.
That's right. Every single day, we'll be bringing you a fresh new tale of survival bravery and, of course, lots of brain-hungry zombies.
I'm Adrian, and I'm always up for a good scare, especially if it involves a healthy dose of zombie mayhem.
And I'm Julia, your guide to all things zombie lore. I've got a feeling tonight's story is going to be a real nail-biter. Hot air balloons, desperate radio signals, and a terrifying new breed of zombie. What more could you ask for?
I know, right? Sounds like a recipe for a sleepless night. But before we get to the chills and thrills, let's take a second to remind our awesome listeners to rate and follow us for more spine-tingling Drunken Zombies episodes.
You don't want to miss out on all the fun, do you? Now let's get back to tonight's survivor, Anya. She found herself clinging to hope in a world that had gone completely mad, a world overrun by the undead. Her only lifeline was a flickering radio signal broadcasting from the last broadcast station, the sole voice left in a post-apocalyptic North America.
The last broadcast. It makes you think, doesn't it? In a world gone silent, a single radio station could become so much more than just a source of information.
It becomes a symbol of hope, a connection to humanity, a reminder that somewhere out there other people are fighting to survive. For Anya, the voice behind that broadcast, known only as the Prophet, wasn't just an announcer. He was a mentor, a guide offering survival tips, coordinates for safe zones, and maybe even a little bit of sanity in a world gone insane.
And let's not forget the emotional impact. Imagine clinging to that voice every day, following every instruction and attributing your very survival to this disembodied voice coming through the static. It's almost like a lifeline when you say.
Absolutely. You're placing your hope in someone you've never even met. But for Anya, this lifeline was about to be severed. One fateful night, the Prophet's reassuring voice is replaced by static, then screams, and finally a desperate plea for help.
The station is under attack.
Can you imagine that? The one thing that has kept you going, the voice that represents your only connection to the world, suddenly goes silent. I think most people would just freeze, overwhelmed by fear. Maybe. But Anya is different. She feels a profound sense of duty. She knows the station's location, 44 North 80 West, somewhere in the wilds of Ontario. She also knows that she is miles away back in New England. What she does next is both daring and incredibly risky.
Hold on, let me guess. She sets out on a journey to rescue the Prophet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in a world overrun by zombies, how does she even begin to make that kind of trip? I mean, it's not like she could just hop on a plane.
That's where things get really interesting. In a stroke of luck, Anya discovers a dilapidated hot air balloon hidden in the woods. Talk about an unconventional mode of transport in a zombie apocalypse.
It's crazy, but you have to admire her courage. I mean, a hot air balloon, it sounds incredibly dangerous.
It was. Anya faced constant challenges, repairing ripped canvas, scavenging for parts, evading hordes of the undead. She even manages to repurpose an old bus seat, welding it onto the balloon's basket for a safer landing. This woman is resourceful and determined, to say the least.
It reminds you of what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall. We find a way, even if it means using a hot air balloon to escape a zombie apocalypse.
But Anya isn't alone in this journey. Along the way, she encounters another survivor, Zeke. And let me tell you, he's the complete opposite of Anya. Think cautious, pragmatic, the kind of guy who hoards canned goods and never takes unnecessary risks.
Now, that's an interesting dynamic. The optimist and the pragmatist thrown together by circumstance? I bet their first meeting was pretty tense.
You bet it was. When Anya tells Zeke about her plan to rescue the Prophet, he practically laughs in her face. He sees it as a suicide mission, especially with the rumors of faster, smarter zombies, pack variants as they're called, roaming the area.
It sounds like Zeke represents that voice of reason, that inner voice that tells us to play it safe to avoid unnecessary risks. It makes you wonder how these two completely different personalities manage to find common ground.
Well, for starters, Anya's unwavering optimism seems to chip away at Zeke's cynicism. She challenges him, asking if he truly believes all hope is lost. She reminds him that the last broadcast, if it's still operational, represents a chance, a glimmer of something better than just surviving day to day.
And that's Anya's strength, isn't it? That ability to find hope even in the darkest of situations, it's almost infectious.
Yeah.
I bet Zeke couldn't help but be drawn in by her determination.
You're right. Despite his initial doubts, Zeke sees something in Anya's unwavering hope. It's like she reawakens a part of himself that he thought he'd lost.
And this unlikely alliance, forged in the crucible of a zombie apocalypse, takes them on a perilous journey towards the last broadcast station. I can only imagine what awaits them at their destination. It's like that moment in a horror movie when the characters think they found a safe haven, but
Let's just say things are never that simple, especially in a world overrun by the undead.
Welcome back to the Drunken Zombies Podcast, where we're continuing our journey through the terrifying, yet strangely inspiring world of zombie lore.
That's right, and we left off with our unlikely heroes, Anya and Zeke finally reaching their destination, the last broadcast mountain complex after a harrowing journey in that rickety hot air balloon.
You know, when I picture a radio station in a zombie apocalypse, I imagine a beacon of hope, a place of community, maybe even a little bit of normalcy amidst all the chaos.
Well, the reality was far more grim. Instead of a warm welcome, Anya and Zeke were met with suspicion, tense interrogations, and armed escorts.
Yikes, not exactly the friendly faces I was expecting.
Remember, trust is a rare commodity in this world. The complex had its own struggles, its own internal conflicts. Two survivors in particular, Sarah and Michael, really highlight this.
Tell me more about them.
Sarah, hardened and efficient, was skeptical of Anya's motives. She had learned to trust no one, especially newcomers. Michael, on the other hand, was more analytical, more hopeful. He saw potential in Anya's skills, especially her talent for mechanics.
So it was Michael who ultimately decided to let them in.
Exactly. He believed Anya could be the key to repairing the station's damaged transmitter.
That was a gamble, wasn't it? Taking in strangers while facing a relentless horde of zombies.
And not just any horde. Remember those pack variants Zeke warned about, faster, more intelligent, more coordinated?
Those sound terrifying.
They were a new breed of zombie, a sign that the threat was evolving, becoming more dangerous.
It's almost like the apocalypse itself is adapting, finding new ways to challenge humanity.
And the complex was barely holding on. They desperately needed to get their signal back up to warn other survivors.
But wouldn't broadcasting their location attract even more zombies? It's like a catch-22.
You're absolutely right. That's where Anya's ingenuity comes in. She realizes they need a distraction, something to draw the horde away from the complex, while Michael and Sarah work on the transmitter.
Okay, I have to ask, is she going to use that hot air balloon again?
You know her well. But this time she's not using it to escape. She's using it as bait, a way to draw the zombies' attention away from the station.
That's incredibly brave, but also incredibly risky. Talk about putting yourself on the line for others.
And Zeke, despite his initial skepticism, recognizes that courage. He knows what Anya is planning, and he chooses to stay and help her.
It's like their journey together has forged a bond between them. A respect for each other's strengths, even if those strengths seem completely opposite.
And that connection is about to be tested in the most extreme way imaginable. Sarah, witnessing Anya's selflessness firsthand, begins to let go of her distrust. She sees Anya risking her life to salvage parts for the transmitter, even facing down a horde of zombies.
And what about the Brute? That monstrous variant Zeke had been so worried about.
Oh, the Brute was a force of nature. It led the charge faster and stronger than any other zombie. Anya's encounter with it is a masterclass in survival.
I bet that was a close call.
It was. She barely escapes its grasp, using a scavenge tool to blind it momentarily.
Quick thinking. But even with the distraction in place, the situation at the complex is deteriorating rapidly.
The horde is relentless, overwhelming the defenses. Escape seems impossible even for Anya and Zeke.
This is where we need a miracle or maybe a secret weapon.
Well, Michael, ever the strategist, had a backup plan. A risky one involving a Zeppelin.
A Zeppelin? Where did he find that?
It was a long shot needing repairs and fuel, but it represented their only chance. And it's during this desperate escape attempt that Zeke makes a decision that changes everything.
What does he do?
Knowing the Zeppelin is overloaded, Zeke chooses to stay behind to buy the others time to escape. It's a selfless act, a true moment of heroism.
He sacrificed himself so that Anya and the others could live. Talk about going from a cynical pragmatist to a true hero.
And as the horror closes in, Anya makes another daring move. She leaps from the crumbling complex into that hot air balloon, using it as a final beacon to draw the zombies away.
So the balloon that represented hope and escape now becomes her final act of defiance.
But just when all hope seems lost, a sound cuts through the chaos, the unmistakable whirring of helicopter blades.
A helicopter. Seriously, in this kind of world, overrun by zombies, where'd that even come from?
It was all Michael, you know? Always thinking 10 steps ahead, always strategizing.
So even with everything going on, he managed to get help. That's really thinking ahead.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Just a stroke of luck? Or was there something more, Anya's bravery, that selflessness? Maybe that sent out some kind of signal, a beacon of hope that others picked up on.
Almost poetic, the way it all kind of played out, reaching someone who could actually help.
And guess who was flying that helicopter?
It was Zeke, wasn't it?
Yep, our cynical pragmatist. Turned out to be a real hero after all. He must have gotten away somehow and found a way to get a rescue team together. Risked everything to save Anya, even after her plan put them all in danger.
Wow. Talk about a reunion. Gives me chills just thinking about it. But one thing's bugging me. You mentioned the Zeppelin was overloaded. Did everyone make it out?
That's where the story takes a bit of a sad turn. The Zeppelin, pushed to its limits, couldn't stay in the air. It crashed, taking those who didn't make it onto the helicopter with it.
A reminder that even when there's hope, even when help arrives, there's still loss, still sacrifice.
Exactly. But even with the grief, there's that resilience. Anya, Sarah, Michael, they all survived. They found a new place to call home, a place to start over. And even though Zeke's gone, his memory lives on. A reminder that even in a world like this, humanity can still shine through.
What about Anya? After everything she went through, how did she deal with the loss, the trauma?
She turned all that pain, all those experiences into something really powerful. Remember the last broadcast, the radio station that gave her so much hope? It was destroyed. But Anya, being Anya, managed to salvage some of the equipment.
So what'd she do, try and rebuild it?
In a way, yeah. She became the new voice of the last broadcast, using that salvaged equipment and drawing on everything she'd been through. She started broadcasting again, offering guidance, sharing stories, reminding other survivors they weren't alone.
Wow, that's incredible. From clinging to a radio signal to becoming the voice that guides others through the darkness, it's like she's come full circle.
And her voice, once so full of youthful optimism, now carries a bit more experience, a touch of sadness. But that underlying message of hope still shines through.
Carrying on the prophet's legacy, inspiring others to keep fighting, keep hoping, even when all seems lost. Powerful message, especially in a world as bleak as the one we've been talking about.
And who knows, maybe out there somewhere in some hidden bunker or a fortified settlement, someone's listening to Anya's broadcast, finding comfort in her words, finding the strength to face another day.
Beautiful thought. The idea that even with zombies, a single voice can make a difference.
And that's what makes these stories so compelling, so much more than just gore and scares. They're about the human spirit, our resilience, our ability to find hope in the darkest of places.
Well said. Well, folks, that's it for tonight's tale of zombie mayhem. We've journeyed through darkness and despair, but in the end, we found that glimmer of hope.
Don't forget to rate and follow for more Drunken Zombies episodes.
We'll be back tomorrow with another chilling story that'll leave you wanting more. Until then, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And remember, in a zombie apocalypse, always double tap just to be sure.
And always keep a spare chainsaw handy. You never know when you might need it. See you next time for another dose of Drunken Zombies.